Minecraft's newest snapshot allows you to lead two mobs together, and so a logical question is, can you lead two fence posts together? The possibilities would be insane, but the answer is no, because neither fence post will let you lead it to anything unless you already have a mob led to it. However, if you want to make, say, telephone wires, this great example from Reddit puts chickens in boxes, and I love the creativity from this, but I also love the insightful comment that came from Kagler also on Reddit, which was, it's absolutely hilarious how the humble boat has conquered the water via the ocean, like you'd expect, but also land via ice roads, and now it's even going to conquer the air thanks to the new ability to tie a boat to a ghast, which is incredible, but as Nebulon B points out, it makes them so powerful that they need to either nerf ice roads or buff minecarts, or maybe do both at the same time. And the truth is, Minecraft have wanted to buff minecarts for a very long time. They put in all the legwork to make it happen, but they're missing one critical detail, and we'll talk about what that detail is alongside all of the other news you might have missed, because hello, I'm ibxtoycat, and this is Q&A Saturday, the weekly series where I answer your questions and give you a recap of the latest Minecraft news. And let's get started with the basic housekeeping of like, favorite, subscribe, before we jump back to Calvagosaurus's comment, because interestingly, they do say that you can't have happy ghast carry players inside, and that's sort of true, but did you know all it takes if you want to be able to ride this, the loophole you have to abuse is in fact just put yourself a pig and a saddle in there. Here is a pig, and this is gonna be a nightmare if we use that boat. So here is a pig, let's saddle it, and then let's put it inside of a boat, and then if we put the boat, notably not the pig, it has to be the boat, onto the happy ghast, now we've got a way, maybe you could argue this is a loophole, but now we've got a way where I can ride the happy ghast as he soars through the air, and so don't worry, the happy ghast bus is still gonna be around. You just have to use, a mob small enough to fit in a boat that lets you ride the mob, so you're not technically riding the happy ghast. Isn't this great? It's a hot air balloon that you don't get to decide the direction of. Speaking of not deciding the direction, the player locator bar allows you to find your friends if they're somewhere that's not nearby, and although lots of people say that this is to do with a multiplayer initiative, David Stone says, I think the player locator bar actually has to do with transport, because players on the locator bar are listed as waypoints. This is true. It's not true on Bedrock, but if we go back 2 weeks snapshots worth for the Java edition, they say the locator bar is an experimental new UI for players that displays the direction of waypoints. And to be fair, I did miss this because it's a Bedrock change that came to Java, but what's interesting is the Java snapshot does clarify that right now it's just by default that players are the waypoints. However, any waypoint that can be determined to be a player or a mob, and basically they're describing the waypoint bar as not just a way to point you towards players in your game, but maybe towards special mobs, or maybe, given we just got a Lodestone update, that could be a part of it in the future. It definitely seems like they have development potential for it, and maybe that's why it's behind experimental. And you know what else is behind experimental? The Minecart. Mike Will C says, well, if they're gonna give us the option to rope boats together, they'd better give us the option to chain minecarts together. We've been asking for more than a decade. And so the minecart update is something we have been asking for a very long time. I think that minecarts used to be great in the console edition. We even had the furnace minecart way back when. And in the Bedrock version of Minecraft, minecarts just suck. Let's be entirely honest. Unless you have powered rails the entire way, which still only allow you to go slightly faster than running, ultimately minecarts aren't worth using, but that could change if the minecart changes come to Minecraft. And will that happen? Well, there's one critical thing missing. It's fully developed on the Java edition, with the small exception being there's not a default minecart speed, but the one thing that is missing before they can bring the minecarts out is actually the Bedrock version of Minecraft. Sadly, this is fully working on the Java version, but there is no equivalent on Bedrock. And so, if you want a minecart update, keep your eyes peeled to the Bedrock version of the game, in particular, this next beta and preview, which is coming out this week, by the way, because it likely will bring the least changes, but likely also bring out some other things that they just couldn't add to the game because they were finishing up 1.20, 1.80, and so this next beta will be the first one for 1.22, and yeah, I know, every drop is 1.22 for you. I want to be very clear here, I am the only person on YouTube calling this 1.22, everyone else is either not giving it a name or calling it 1.20, 1.90, but I want to be clear that I have only called 2 updates 1.22. The first of these was the Garden Awakens. It was our first drop, and so a lot of people got that one wrong, and so everyone's been very cautious of labeling any update 1.22 without Mojang officially saying so, but I'm going to make the last prediction here before they give us an announcement that this update is coming out exactly 1 year after 1.21, and so if this isn't going to be 1.22, they're going to have to change their entire update system, which I'll concede is a small, maybe 10 to 20% possibility, possibility, but I think it's either 1.22 or bust, and we'll find out if I'm right. I am the only one with this stance, but we'll find out this next week if we get a beta preview for the next update after 1.21.80. Speaking of the next update, here's an interesting update to Minecraft's name. They went from being Minecraft to Minecraft Play with Friends to now on the iOS App Store, Minecraft Dream It, Build It. This is what you'll find if you go to the Apple App Store, and I did admit that in a video that I said that this might be a sign that they're changing the vibe of their next update. However, Hadex Mara says, no, you're reading too much into this. Think like a YouTuber. The App Store has a trending page, and every app developer is wanting to get to the top of that page, and what they are doing is messing with the name to try and get trigger words that would cause the algorithm to artificially boost it. It's just them playing with the App Store's algorithm. It's nothing of intention. I think this comment is correct, that they are basically just experimenting with their App Store page, which is wild for one of the most sold games of all time. However, I do want to raise a point, which is the number of times they said the word algorithm here is something we are doing far too much as a society. Yes, algorithms are real, and nowadays, as more people consider themselves content creators of some form, whether that's on TikTok or Instagram or whatever, now people do all sorts of wild things and say, oh yeah, it's for the algorithm. People will be seeing all sorts of strange behavior and justify it by saying there is an algorithm that must favor this in some way, and I just want to go ahead and say that is one of these scary things we do as a society. We used to have superstitions about how you should be cautious if you see a black cat, or we shouldn't step on the cracks, or walking under ladders is really bad luck, and now we've replaced those with this idea that there is an algorithm, and when things go well, it's because the algorithm has blessed us, and when things go poorly, it's because we've upset the algorithm, which is why we start inventing words like unalive, because, you know, saying murder or anything like that was seen as a bad thing for a video, and I think it's wild that we've basically removed superstition for scientific reason, and now we've had this like pseudo, you know, religion system where we just trust the algorithm, or rather, we don't trust the algorithm, but we don't want to anger it, and so we make sure not to say the scary words. Anyway, I think it's kind of ridiculous. You know what else I think is kind of ridiculous? This very fun thing from Raven Tofu, who is a Japanese Minecrafter. They built a merry-go-round or carousel, whatever you want to call it, and I think it's absolutely beautiful, don't you? Speaking of things that are beautiful, I heard one of the developers on the Vibrant Visuals team confirm the end flashes were supposed to be supernovas going off in space. Honestly, there is very little confirmation I can easily find from any Minecraft developer. It is a shame that Twitter became a political statement, like to be on it or not, because of, let's just say, how things are run over there, because it means that now there's not an easy place for people to say something and there to be a public record, because now if you want to find what Minecraft graphics developers think, they're on some private Discord somewhere that isn't searchable, and so you have to hear things through second or third hand like this, but a lot of people have been saying, indeed 57 people have voted, the idea that they are meant to be supernovas going off in space. This is an absolutely wild lore change, and you know, there's a part of me that would love saying, ooh, is it going to be an end update? But I am still trying to disassociate myself from the people saying, Mojang L, unless you do exactly what I want, you are a lazy company, and so instead allow me to talk about this lazy company. Barry Pro 538 suggests an idea that I've been thinking of for a while, because Super Flat Core has been so much fun. That is because you've only been able to play hardcore on Super Flat since the last update, about 3 weeks ago, and so Barry says, why don't you do it with the option to restart from your latest save point? This is something I've been playing around with, the idea of hardcore, but not true hardcore. It feels a bit wrong because it's very hard to explain, but I like the idea of hardcore where if you die, all of your progress since the last save point is wiped. In my case, these save points would be the start and end of each stream, because at the end of every stream, I back up my worlds because of the issues we've had between them, and so basically, it could be a fun little way to do that. I really would like to do this. I just don't know, this is where I need your help. What should I call that? It's not hardcore. Is it like harder than hard? It's somewhere between hard difficulty and hardcore. Is it softcore? I don't know if I should be saying that I'm playing softcore Minecraft, but I do know that I want your tips on what we should call that, because I would love to jump back into episode 1. I was in a really great place with so much ahead of me, but I need to know what should we call that series if we wanted to do that. Speaking of what if we wanted to do that, there are far too many capes. They've lost their value. I don't care about collecting them anymore. That's right, Robert Lean does not want to do it, and I think that they, honestly, Mojang are basically hoping for this reaction. It's the only way I can rationalize their behavior, because if we compare the way that capes work right now, where they are rare and valuable and people want every single one of them, willing to do entirely irrational things to get them, it's kind of a throwback to how, discontinued items worked in RuneScape. If you're not familiar with those, they dropped items in the game you could only get for 1 or 2 days, and in 2003 they had to say, look, we're never doing one of these again, because many players started to get upset about the drop, which was the opposite of the intended effect. Instead of the cape being a huge benefit to those who have them, a lot of people started to be disappointed that they couldn't get them, and when Minecart tickets were selling in like 12 hours, even if you were willing to travel to the other side of the world, it would create huge problems in actually getting them. Therefore, the easiest way to strengthen people's accounts, which were at risk before, is simply to make there be so many capes that having a rare cape is nice but not essential, because now literally everyone and their grandmother's nan's bridge partner, they all have access to capes, and so whether you have a nice cape or a not so nice cape, it's entirely fine. Although with that said, so many people have asked me for codes to the villager experience, and yeah, just so you know, still planning that battle royale, but later today, I'm going to the villager experience again. I'm gonna level with you. It is, I'm not looking forward to it in the slightest, but I am looking forward to telling you about the last 2 things from this video, 2 very important notices from the week. The first of these was something that I did horribly wrong, and don't worry, I'll apologize for that, but the second of which is something I'm very excited about, because this week is when we got a release date for V1.0 of Toycat's Toolkit. This is the second add-on that we've put out as a studio. If you're not familiar, I hired Agent Mindstorm, who you probably know from Console Aspects or one of the many other things that you've probably downloaded without realizing. He is the lead for this project, and we have this same philosophy of what if there were actually features in an add-on that you would actually want in survival, that you could conceivably see Mojang adding, but all of the ones that would make your long-term survival world better. And some of those things are quality of life features, like being able to place blocks in midair. Look at me, this is the marketing shot we decided to use for that. But one of the other fun ones here is what if you had a crossbow, it's a heavy crossbow in this case, that could shoot different types of bolts, and even, that's right, slightly explosive ones. I love this a lot, and maybe you do too, but Toycat's Toolkit is coming out on May the 27th. Honestly, I have a lot of worry about the idea that we put Toycat in the name for this one, because it does feel a bit weird, but I figured it might be useful to explain that these are the things that I would want in my long-term survival world, and hopefully it's the sort of thing you look at and you want in yours, because it will be available on that date. I'm so excited. Anyway, the second thing is the apology that I have to go through, because I used a meme that I thought was fairly wholesome, where as you can see, water bucket makes a happy ghast, lava bucket makes a sad ghast, and milk bucket makes a ghast that, needs to sneeze. And okay, I missed this one entirely. This is an insane thing to post, Toycat, WTF. And so yeah, apparently I got responses to that saying the asexual speculation might be real, and I guess kind of in response to that, I guess it's time that I do finally come out. I am officially a Anyway, with that said, I hope you all enjoyed today's video. Make sure to like, favorite, and subscribe if you did, even if you can't do one of those things. And even if liking is basically a metric that only works internally for YouTubers at this point, I can see what % of you like versus dislike, and that's kind of nice, I guess. But yeah, I hope you all enjoyed, and just remember, if you see spam comments like this, look how many appear on a new video, report it as spam. I report as many as I can see as spam, and I block as many as I can, but there's so many of these generic, like girls. And first of all, I want to say, people shouldn't be clicking on them. Don't ever believe that some random person on YouTube is at, YouTube is not where you go to meet friends, sadly, outside of a live stream, but particularly, please report these, because there's so many of them, and someone needs to do it. So if you see too much spam, you can report it, and you can fix it too. Speaking of things you can fix, I can fix you, hopefully, by, I don't know, like reminding you that this is a special moment, and even if there are bad things right now, there will be a time where you look back on this day or this month or maybe just this year, but it'll be a time you fondly remember. And so rather than only getting to enjoy it in your memories, why don't you enjoy it right now?